How would you like to know how to get paid for your architecture credits in school and explore your favorite city all at the same time?
At the end of my third year, I remember meeting with my advisor to discuss choosing an academic internship. I had lots of questions like how to go about it, how to get into my dream firm, and where to find the opportunities during the school semester. Well, in this episode, we'll help you move from feeling overwhelmed about the academic internship to being excited and well prepared to make the most out of your experience.
So stay until the end because we're going to cover how to land a position at your dream firm, how to give your portfolios and resumes a little extra spice and flavor, and more. So pull up LinkedIn, grab your portfolio, and let's jump into the conversation. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the Critmer Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Ryan, with my co-host,
Albert, just Albert.
And join us today is Jimena. This is actually the first time we've ever had a guest that isn't from K-State, actually. So you made podcast history. That's cool. And funny enough, she's actually from KU, which, it's kind of like our Dr. Doofenshmirtz to the Barry Platypus at K-State. So,
There, boo.
got a little bit of a rivalry there, but we're going to men's highs today.
Dude, I remember when people just kept saying rock chalk to me while I was in my other internship, and they were just like, oh God, not them.
Yeah.
No, but all jokes aside, we're actually really glad to have her on with this episode because she's going to help us bring a whole nother perspective on this topic, because apparently our schools have very different ways of approaching the whole academic internship topic and completely different times into completely different years. So, we're just going to get started into this. So I guess our first question is, we were curious about, with KU's experience, like what are the classes they had to do during this like internship too? Because from what I understand, I didn't actually do the academic internship. I did the study abroad option at K-State instead, but Albert did. So I have like parts and pieces from how K-State works. So I was just curious if KU is something similar to that, or like, what those classes are.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So honestly, so it's my 5th year. And then like you guys mentioned, the internship, they call it an externship. And the classes that you take on the side are kind of up to you or how many credits you have left. So by 5th year, most people are pretty much done. So I'm taking like a sociology class because I missed the gen ed. I forgot about it. So I have to go grab that now. And then like ARC 700 class, it was like a directed readings class, super laid back. But yeah, I would say the goal is to not take a super challenging class while you're doing your internship. Yeah.
Dude,
so are these classes asynchronous? Or are they like, you have to meet up at a certain time too?
Well, yeah. So for one, the sociology was completely online. It was like you do your assignments on Canvas and whatever. But one of my ARC 700 class, it was during lunchtime. So I would like go home for lunch, and it's like an hour of a Zoom and then go back. So, but that's the only one that kind of like interfered really.
I honestly, when I was doing my internship, having classes on the side was kind of super difficult because like I just wanted to enjoy myself and like just be part of like the city, enjoy everything. And then every like 2 weeks or so, having to turn something in, I was just like, oh, this is the dreaded, like, I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah, exactly. I know. So there's moments where I forget that I'm in school, right? And then when things are due, I'm like, oh my gosh. And like the other day I had to miss a happy hour to take an exam, so it's kind of like little things like that. But yes, completely agree. There's moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I have to go to home and do homework right now. Like
I was going to say, that was kind of a funny inside joke in her office about like, we would tease Amanda when she couldn't make it to like happy hour or something. Cause she's like, oh guys, I have homework to do. I have like my coloring pages to get done for today.
Exactly.
No, there was, you remember, Ryan, do you remember when you guys went and visited Abby and I in Seattle?
How could I forget?
Dude, I think it was right after you guys left, but we, Sam, Reed, and I and Abby were there, but I think Riju and Jaden were also there. But we went to go to Seattle, and we took the was it the ferry to go to Bainbridge Island, and
That's a good
so
spot.
we went to go to this garden or around in Bainbridge Island, and there was only one Uber within the island, and so we got stuck there for
Really?
like hours and hours. And Reed and Sam had like a flight within the next hour or so, and so we were
No
like
way.
stressed. And during that time, right at the same time, Abby and I had an essay due at the same time
Oh,
for the
man.
internship class, and so everything was kind of just stacking and stacking. But we Abby and I had to like push that aside because we wanted to spend time with you guys. But at putting that,
It's just that constant pressure in the background with things, I
dude,
guess.
it was the worst thing ever. I That's why I wholeheartedly believe that school and internship should just like, it's like they should have a divorce a little bit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally
Because,
agree.
like, what was the classes for K State, Albert?
So we had this internship class on our fall semester where we had to figure out what our portfolio looked like, our cover letter, and a resume, and then we'd have to apply to so many firms. And our spring semester would then be we would go into internship, but while we're internship, we had to do a research paper based on what the firm is specialized in. And so like my Seattle firm didn't really specialize in this, but because I was in Seattle, my research really it was around the idea of homelessness and how to combine like this typology of being like in a hospital, like the hospice type of thing, while being in a homeless shelter. Because what happens with the homeless situation, from what I understand from my sister who works in being she's a doctor in Michigan, and so I asked her what like the whole situation is like. And so what happens is that typically the homeless people get sick. They have to go to hospital to get fixed up. But since they don't have the money, the hospital kicks them out immediately. So they go back to the streets, and they don't really have a place for them to like rest up and really recover. And so
Hmm.
couple days later they come back to the hospital again for the same issues because they never really recovered from the previous thing. And so my research was really going about was, is there like a care center within the homeless shelter typology that we can combine so that we don't deal with the same issues. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Now, that's interesting
Wow,
that the
that is,
research was very, like,
yeah.
localized.
Yeah.
We
No, I was
never
gonna say.
did anything like that. At least I hope not, because I didn't do that. So
Didn't get that email, yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, no, that's super cool actually. I like the idea of, I guess, tying back your internship to school and like being able to show kind of what you learned and
yeah.
everything. I know we just had a meeting for my next studio, and then I think all we have to do is write a letter about what we did or something
Mm,
to our
Hey,
professor.
there
dude,
you
I'd
So
prefer
that's
that.
super. Yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah.
I prefer
So
because the amount of stress I had for
I
that
bet.
semester was
Yeah.
just, oh my god. Because
Yeah. I just think maybe our internship programs are a lot different. Like, it seems like you guys have
No,
more.
I was gonna say that's why like I was super curious about what this episode could be, especially like
Yeah,
hearing like because again like for us it happens in our fourth year. For you, it happens in your fifth
right.
year. So like
Yeah,
I feel like even those classes, the way that you decide to do those are even different too. Because
mhm,
in fifth
right,
year, it seems like you like okay, what else do you have to get done on top of
right.
what we are supposed to tell you to do during your internship? And then
Yeah,
K State's a little bit more of I don't know if you would say forgiving, but it just you have one more year to catch up on everything else if you don't like
right.
have the credits filled where you're supposed to be at.
Yeah. So that's actually, I think my fourth year was the most stressful of them all
Mm,
because, so yeah, I guess I don't know how that would translate for you guys, but it was when you had to have your best studio project, either
mm,
first
mm,
semester or second, because it's like that's how you're going to get a job, you know?
mhm, mm,
And then during that time, it was
I
you
see.
apply, yeah, you apply to these programs. So there's like sports and entertainment, You can go to Paris on your 5th year. There's a few other firms that offer like their own little program within. There's like an urban program. So there's lots. So that stress of like, and you have to apply, and
Mm.
then you either get accepted or
Ooh.
denied. So it was like, so that's why it was super stressful that 4th year doing like your best studio project, still taking challenging classes like
Mhm.
architecture classes, not
Mm-hmm.
easy. And then, you know, you have to apply, and that's when we had to make our portfolio look the best. Like that was actually the most stressful time, was like from November till February of my 4th year, because February we found out if we get accepted, and then after you get accepted, it's like you have to, I think firms reach out to you or you reach out, and then
Mm.
you finally get do these interviews and everything. So I guess in a way you guys had to do all of that your 3rd year, correct?
Sort of, and a
Oh,
combination of fifth year, I would say. I
okay.
think third year was very, I don't know, because, the
Mhm.
virus that went around,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
that changed a lot of things for everyone. Just third year is a blank, or I guess your second year. But
Mm-hmm.
then it just, yeah, third year was a lot more focused on just like developing your designs to the further degree that you could take them, just
Mhm.
to help yourself out a little bit more and get, like, if you wanted a summer internship on your own
Mhm.
devices, that's kind
Right.
of what you're aiming towards.
Mhm.
But then ultimately you're aiming towards your fourth year, because you knew in your head, like, oh, that's going to be like that quote unquote vacation year where you can go on study abroad, or like
Yeah.
you could go off to one of your favorite cities in America and do an
Yeah.
internship there. So
Mhm.
I think our goalpost was kind of set for that fourth year. I don't know if Albert
Yeah.
has a different perspective
Well,
since he
yeah,
actually did that
because
internship,
like
but
at the end of our third year, second semester, that's when we had to choose, but whether between we go to internship or study abroad. And so, what your choice would then turn into going to fourth year is then the supplemental classes that would help you out. So with Ryan's, I don't know if you guys had like a study abroad class, right? Like getting
yeah,
the.
we had like an orientation class. It met like once every week,
Mhm.
and it would just give us a rundown of like, here's what the program's going to be about. Like, now that you've been accepted into it,
Yeah.
this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to be living for X amount of weeks. This is what we're going to like travel to around Orvieto, Italy. Like, it
Mhm.
basically gave a whole rundown. It also helped us figure out what type of things we had to do paperwork wise, so like
Mhm.
filling out paperwork for the government over in Italy, and like
Mhm.
figuring out all that
Oh,
kind of stuff. And again, since the virus is going around, figuring out the protocols for that virus over in that country, and also figuring out how to do that while you're here in the United States too. So it was more focused on like the, let's get you prepped so you can actually get on the plane to
Yeah.
get over there.
It's the
And once
same
we were over
thing.
there, whole different thing. But
Yeah, it's the same thing for the internships. People who chose internship as route as well for K State. Um, ours was just like the preparatory classes for actually trying to get an internship. So our classes, like I said, were
mm,
preparing our cover letters, preparing our resumes, preparing our portfolios, and then by the end of that semester, we would have had an internship lined up already for spring semester.
that's
yeah, I guess I
awesome.
can transition into that next topic, or next, question. Why did you choose the academic internship route? Like, was
Mm.
it something that like you had to do at KU? If was there like a split decision between that and study abroad for you, or can you do both, or like how is that set up for KU?
So study abroad, I think the one equivalent to that would be the Paris program.
Mm.
So you go there for a whole year though. It's a whole,
Oh,
like your last
Wow.
5th year, you're in Paris. And it sounds cool, and I'm sure the people that are doing it are having a blast. I
You,
just
you,
don't think I could do that. Like,
that
you gotta spill the
sounds
tea.
expensive.
Why don't you think you can do that?
yeah, I just, I mean, that's a commitment, you know. And
Yeah.
I did do study abroad my summer going into my 4th year, and it was a London and Paris. And I don't want to talk
Mm.
bad about Paris,
Mm.
but it's just like so overhyped, you know?
Mm.
It is like,
I've been hearing that a lot.
yeah. And so it's like a thing that happens. There's a term for it, but I forgot what it was. And it's like, it was a little bit underwhelming. It was awesome.
Mm.
I had a great time, but it was definitely like, I could not do this for a year, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, yeah. So to answer your question, you can do like Paris, There's an urban one, like I mentioned, a few other options, but there's not really like a study abroad for 1 semester ordeal, I think.
Mm.
Interesting. No,
I
that's
don't
kind
think
of
so.
unique to hear then.
Yeah. Because you're required to study abroad actually, regardless. You
Oh,
can, that's one of the requirements. The virus did, you can opt out of it now.
Mm.
That was a thing, but it's pretty much a requirement. So you usually get that out of the way, or
Mhm.
you do it like the summer after your 5th year is what a
Mhm.
couple people do. But yeah, so I'd already done that, and then pretty much it's the internship. You have options of where and for what for,
Mhm.
but it's almost also required. Not almost. It's required. Yeah, everybody. Yeah.
so do they
Yeah.
pick and choose like the firms that you're like? Do they put together a list and it's like you can only go to ones on this list, or do they
Mhm.
give you a list but you can also choose ones that you want to go to?
So it's a mix. So it's certain firms obviously like are part of this program, like they want to bring people in, and there's like relationships of firms in the school that's like they've been there for a while. And then also the process is a little bit selective, and each firm can only take one intern. And so if you don't happen to
Mm.
be like get a job at that list, I you're able to go somewhere else. Like say people had an internship back home for 2-3 years already,
Mhm.
they can go there if it doesn't work out. but
Mhm.
but like I mentioned, it seems like our requirements are not as strict as K-State, almost like everybody can kind of, it's literally you're just there to work, so and
Mm.
learn. Yeah.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quote unquote learn or quote unquote frick.
Yes, exactly.
My route for like why I chose internship, I guess, was more towards like I couldn't afford study abroad. And so for me it was like I'm already paying for school, and so part of me was just like, let's find something that like let's find some place where I've never been to before, I've never experienced it, while also like paying for school and also getting paid by the firm itself. And
Hmm.
so it was more of like the give and take of both, like experiencing something completely different, but also getting paid at the same time because money's it's we're all broke college students, so
Yeah.
it's kind of rough out here.
No, I agree. I think, well, oh my gosh, there's a program, Studio 804, also an option. I can't believe I didn't mention that, which is super cool. It's like they design and build a house, like a team of maybe 30 of
Oh
us.
yeah.
It's you guys, I'll send you guys like the Instagram, but
No, I
yeah.
was gonna say I remember like for during our fourth year, it was a pretty big decision on like whether or not you wanted to fork out the extra like 10K or whatever it is now, but it was 10K when we were going there for like on top of your already like tuition rate
Mm.
just to go study abroad. And then some people are like, tuition is already pretty challenging. Like to throw another 10 grand
Dude,
on top of that, like
yep.
even if you can get like a couple scholarships or so, that's still like, let's pretend it's like half of that now or something
Yeah.
at the best. It's still like, man, that's a lot of cash to just
I
fork
was
up
looking
for.
at my bank account. I was like, there only is like it's only going down if I go to Italy. But if I go somewhere else, there's like up and down. Like it's a whole roller
Yeah, yeah.
coaster.
Like I think, don't get me wrong, I think both or whichever way you chose to go, I think everyone had great experiences wherever they were at. But I definitely think like the internship had more of that financial benefit to it. It
Yeah.
could help offset some of your costs. Another question is, what was the whole process in setting all of it up? We've touched on it a little bit before. Of like, you're talking to your
Mhm.
advisor, you're setting up these classes, and they're telling you like your path for the rest of your years or something. But in terms of like the more personal side of how you were able to set things up, did you have to apply to a bunch of them before you found quote unquote the one, or what was the portfolios and resumes set up like, and all this other stuff?
Right. Okay, so like I mentioned, it was actually like one of the most stressful processes of school. Um, and so it's 4th year, kind of like I said, November through February is kind of that big chunk. So we did not have a class. That would have been awesome. We did have a class
Hmm.
that kind of helped us with, I take that back. We had a class that helped us with a resume.
Mm.
Um, and that one was one of those like mandatory ones, and it got us set up to like it actually, and it helped us kind of know like the process, like SDDD, all of that. Like it kind of went through all of those processes
Oh
so that we
wow.
know what, like when people throw out terms at work, like what they're talking
Mm,
about, right?
the lingo.
And then, yep, the lingo, exactly. It was like a lingo class and the resume. So that was a class, and then you could take a portfolio class, but that one was optional. I never did. I should
Mm.
have. So yeah, kind of they helped us get set up, but after that it was our studio professors kind of sat us down,
Mhm.
walked through the agenda and the steps, and it was like, okay, so start getting your portfolio ready. You have until, I forgot the exact month we applied. It might have been November. So you have all your options. You write a letter to your first option,
Mm.
and
Your
then
dream firm?
yes, yes. Or like I said, it could be the 804 program. That's like, I think one of the
Oh, I
only
see.
in the nation. I think I could be making that up, so I don't know, but it's a really good program. So all those fifth year options, the Paris option. So you write a letter to your first one, or then you list your second and third option, right? So you
Mm,
submit that in November, and then you have pretty much, they tell you that firms will start to look at portfolios in like January, maybe.
mm,
And so you
That's about
have,
right.
yeah, so you have until from November to January to clean up your portfolio, get everything that you want, set
mhm,
up and
Mhm.
everything, because they want you to get that last or that first semester, fourth year project in there, obviously, because that's your most recent one. And then you find out in February, somewhere in that time frame, what program you get accepted to. And after that, like you mentioned, they'll send a list of firms. And some people email them. I waited, a few people waited to see like who emails you, right?
Mm.
mhm,
And then from there on, you start doing interviews, and just, it was like a mix of teams for some
mhm.
firms, in person for others. And then, yeah, and then you find your home,
Yeah.
and there you
There you
go.
go.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
that sounds stressful to like just do all the portfolio and everything to do just like
2 months.
within that like I don't even think if it's like 2 months. It's like almost 1 month.
Yeah.
One,
It was actually like the craziest time, because it just so happened that everything was kind of due while your or while your
And
studio
studios
presentation
going
was
on. Yeah.
also,
Oh
yeah.
man.
oh
So that
wow.
was a whole thing, and obviously there was just so much pressure of like getting into the program you wanted. Like
Mhm.
everybody was, how our architecture students are. It's like
Mhm.
egos of the egos, or like we're just gonna go, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it was super stressful, but super rewarding. It was
Mhm.
awesome. It was yeah, it's been a good experience for sure.
Yeah, because like so when I was doing my portfolio, I was dedicating so much time into it, and so
Mhm.
I'm imagining you doing a portfolio during December where you're supposed to be like with your family, friends, and just like spending time with
Yeah.
them, enjoying time, and then you don't because you're focused on this portfolio. I'm just like, oh
Right.
wow.
Yeah, and then I like re-rendered one of my projects because I was like, this looks horrible. So yeah, like what we were, yes, and we were going crazy. Everybody was redoing things like
Yeah,
diagrams and everything, just to like get it up to the good standards. But yeah, it was not, and honestly it's my fault because I hadn't touched my portfolio in 2 years, I think.
honestly, that's
So
where everyone's at.
Yeah, I was gonna
yeah.
say. I think that's everyone's.
So everybody was like, shoot. And then, the people that work on it every summer, they were probably totally fine. So it depends on the student on how stressed you were.
Yeah.
I happen to be one of those.
No,
Mhm.
I before I move on, I guess the question I so like, you said that you applied to one big firm, or the thing that's like your dream, I guess, and then like two other options. So you in total just three internship
Yes.
places.
Yes. So there's like the urban program, the sports entertainment. So it's technically programs like the
Also,
804
they
program.
categorize the firms you can
Yes,
go
they
to. Oh,
categorize,
okay.
and then after that, when you get accepted, they'll give you the list of the firms. But
Oh.
prior
Mhm.
to, they had like a presentation, and each firm came in, I think from each program, and
Hmm.
talked about it.
Yeah.
So maybe not. No, I take that back. There's one specific firm that has their own program.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I don't know, it's kind of confusing, but it's technically programs and then firms are embedded within each program.
Makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
so
So
much
you're not,
sense now.
yes, yes, the
Okay.
program is not a firm. It's like a broad, like sports entertainment is what I'm
Hmm.
in. So you know
Okay.
you'd be getting into sports firms and something if
Okay.
if that
So
makes
then once you know your category, I guess we could say,
sense.
then is it like a application frenzy and you just like throw out as many as you possibly can and hope for like the best? Or was there more of
Mhm.
like a guided system for that?
So they send you an email like you got accepted, yay, and then they'll send you list of firms, right? They'll be like, these are the firms that you can reach out to or that they will reach out to you.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that technically begins the application process. Like I mentioned, I waited. Um, and then from there, you kind of, it's almost like you also kind of get to choose, it's
Mm.
not just them choosing you. So it's a little mix of both. Yeah.
No, that
Yeah.
makes so much sense now.
Hmm.
Because ours, we so at K State, we didn't have the categories thing either. It was just like
Yeah, I
straight.
was gonna say it sounds
It
so
was
different.
it was a free for all. Like the internship class happened, and then they were like, "These are all the firms that we have, but if you're free to look elsewhere." And so I
Uh-huh.
was just like, "Oh my god, this is
Wow,
really so
yeah.
surreal." And it was just basically like Hunger Games. There's a bunch of like weapons and stuff like in the middle, food and stuff, and everyone's just like, "I'm getting that," and then you just like it was rough.
Very competitive. It's like
Yeah,
piranhas in a pit kind of situation.
yeah.
For real,
It's
for
from
real.
an outside perspective.
It is super competitive. Like architecture students are so competitive. It's scary, but did K-State only take one per firm or
Um,
No,
I
actually.
don't think so.
okay.
But it's weird because the firms that they do say are just mainly like around the Midwest region, and
Mhm.
but the ones that I wanted were more towards the East and the
Yeah, yeah.
West Coast, but they
Mhm.
didn't really have connections there, and so I had to find a way for me to get a connection there. So
Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna actually ask that next. Well, two questions in that. A, did they give you like any sort of like spicy tips to put on your resume to make it sound better to some of these firms? And B, like, did you find that you also had to go out of your way to find other connections, like through LinkedIn or whatever, and like, find some people there to try and get some connections with to have a better
Right.
chance, I guess? Or,
Honestly, no. I think that they set us up well with that one class about like for resume. It wasn't like a strict resume class, but one of the requirements happened to be like you
mm,
work on it, blah blah. But no, I honestly think it was really the firms look at your portfolio and from there, it's like the interview is kind of like the thing that weeds you in or out.
Hmm.
ah,
And yeah, and then I don't know, I don't think I needed to search for connections. KU did a pretty good job at like,
Yeah.
because if you're part of the program and you get accepted,
it makes
they've
sense.
had
Yeah.
success interns for years. So it's super nice. Like
Hmm.
we have a few at the firm I'm at that were in the same program.
Hmm.
And like ours, they ended up staying there. So it's a super good program. So I
Hmm.
don't think I really had to go out of my way to be like, hire me, I
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Mhm.
I think K-State is very different in that regard because I remember
It's more of like a free market type of
it
situation
really
instead
Yeah,
of like
is.
a,
it's so
I don't want to say
stressful.
controlled market, but like
Yeah.
it seems like
Mhm.
KU is like we have our like we're handshaking across the table, like we'll give you some of our people and you have a
Yeah.
spot for them when they
Yeah,
walk in the door.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
K State seem a
breaking
little more Wild West
Yeah,
kind of
you
style.
guys were just a big I think it's breaking up into little clusters is
Hmm.
helpful because instead of competing with like 180 people, you're competing
Oh
with
yeah.
like 15 people. There's one program that only lets in
Hmm.
5. It's like yeah,
Wow.
I think that helped a lot. Yeah.
No, I
Mhm.
think that's actually like, yeah, I would not wish the things that I experienced to anyone. And so, no,
Yeah.
because I remember because I was struggling really hard to find some like firms. And so, in terms of connections, I went to go and talk to a bunch of my professors that like went to school in California, went to school Texas and stuff like that. I even sent them my portfolio and cover letter and resume, and they emailed me back and they were like, "This cover letter, is really bad. We need to talk." I was like,
Oh
"Oh
man.
my
Oh
god." And so
wow.
I met up with her, and this is Professor Hits different, by the way. Um, uh, we have what
Nicknames
aliases,
for some
nicknames.
professors,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Professor Hits different was just like, we need to talk, and I met up with her. Before I went up there, I was sweating. Like, I was like, what did I do wrong? And then so she printed out this other cover letter she got from another student and showed it to me, and she was like, now this is how you write a cover letter. This is succinct, this is concise, this is clear, this is simple. But like, it needs to hit all of these. Like, you need to sell yourself, because I know, this is what she said, I know I had you as a student and you are super, super talented, but what you're saying here does not reflect that. I was like, damn, I'm about to cry. But it's okay. It's okay. Or it's a work in progress. Everyone fails at some points, but
Mm,
I can't iterate enough that if you do need an internship and you're not getting the resources around the school, talk to professors, because they will have the
mhm.
resources. They've been through these firms, they've been through all these like different experiences that you haven't had, and so they know these people and they can get you in contact with these people. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's
No,
my like
yeah,
I
the, like,
big
selling
tip.
yourself is a really good point and, like,
yeah.
really helpful tip.
Yeah. Having good relationships with like specific professors too is super big. It's like I agree that's a super important thing. And I guess I didn't really use that during this process, but I do believe some people did, like,
Hmm.
because you
Mhm.
still have professors that are working at certain firms and, they're also always recruiting. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know if there was, like, any other, like, really helpful tips that either professors or, like, you could learn from those classes that were just, like, were able to take your portfolio or resume or,
Mhm.
cover letter to the very next level?
Yeah. Okay. One thing I would say is portfolio. Like, keep up with it every single year. I wish I would have. And you know what? At the end of the day, you'll probably go back and redo some of your stuff for the first couple years, no matter what, which is fine. Well, that I recommend. Redo your stuff. Certain stuff. I mean, I don't know. I think my fourth year professors actually they emphasize graphics so much,
Mm.
and that was like the thing that changed everything for me. I was
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
I have a professor that was like, you get paid to make things look good. Like, so,
Mm.
Mm,
do it. Like, so I think that was one of the biggest wake up calls was like, oh my God, like he's right. You're selling your work. Spend 8 hours on a diagram if you need to. Like you're in school during school, not at
mhm.
work,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
you can't.
yeah. Right, right.
Um, but yeah, so like make everything, dedicate so much time to presenting things well and like so that it reads well to everything.
Mhm,
Don't go over the board where things are confusing and you just want it to look cool. Like that's the biggest thing. So if you keep up with that, your
mhm.
portfolio is pretty much made,
Yeah.
right? So go back to your portfolio so much, update that. I think that's really like the main thing.
I do
And then
have some.
Revit. Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
yeah, yeah.
say learn those softwares. Like you got to know them all. It's super good to know them while you're interning.
Mhm.
You'll learn so much, but Revit is a huge tool. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, there's like a plane going on. I don't know. Um, yeah, I guess it'd be softwares and portfolios and
Mhm.
just like make it look good. Like
Yeah,
that's how you sell yourself. That's really how you, and obviously a good idea.
yeah, yeah.
Like human
Something
design.
something that the Professor Hits different said to me during that meeting as well was, all your three documents, your portfolios, cover letters, resumes, have to speak the same language and also have to show your personality as an architect, as a
Mhm.
designer.
Mhm.
And so I didn't do that, but eventually I did. So,
Yeah.
but I still got my dream job, like dream firm when I applied for mine. But still, I think the biggest tip is that your portfolio, your resume, your cover letter all have to speak the same language. Whatever that like graphic style is. Maybe it's like font styles or anything like that, just like the organization. It all has to kind of speak the same thing. That you can tell from afar that from a cover letter, like just reading cover letter, and then going to the portfolio, you're like, oh, these are two same people. Like, this is the same person. Like
Yeah.
there's a distinction, and so that's one
I
of the
mean, it
big things
really
you
is
should do.
about building up like a personal branding as a student, especially
Mhm.
like nowadays with Instagram and just now that you're able to do LinkedIn and everything. I didn't necessarily do this for like the internship purposes, but I definitely did this for like fifth year and like about to graduate looking for actual jobs. I then went through my portfolio at some point and I started taking all the way in my old files from like, second year and everything, just finding like some of those projects and trying to create like what I call them micro portfolios
Mm,
and creating like a 10 slide little thing that you could do for like Instagram. But then if you
mhm,
convert them into PDFs, you could throw that onto LinkedIn the same way. So then it was kind of like an Instagram carousel, but for like one project. And I would just
mhm.
upload like a couple of those every couple of weeks on LinkedIn just to show when firms are looking through LinkedIn eventually, like they'll scroll down. For most people, it's completely blank, which
Yeah,
I think is like a huge missed opportunity.
that's
So if
mine.
you can start to like
That's me
throw a
too.
couple
That's me
things
too.
on there, then
Mhm.
like automatically when you have 800 people applying for your same position at a firm, I'm
Yeah.
going to look at the LinkedIn profiles and see like, oh, this person, putting in the extra work. Like, let's take a look at this.
Yeah, that's so true. I think the thing that I did, which is probably like the least, like the thing that you should be able to do is just post like your portfolio on your LinkedIn, because that's how like they
Hmm.
look at your like the work that you've done. Like they see you as a designer, and so I would suggest maybe using like Issue. But then again, I remember with Issue there is a 50-page like
There's an issue with issue
requirement
right
now.
now.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
make sure that your portfolios aren't too long so that people can actually look at it. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine got the boot from Issue. I haven't it was it was like after I had gotten my internship and everything, so I have to go back and publish it somewhere, but yeah, that was pretty annoying, and then it's like, isn't it like a file size too? So
Yeah.
Something like
the
that.
images
Yeah.
aren't like what you want. I don't know. I think I'll switch to a different one.
Hmm.
It's like, what's the other one? It's like R something.
I can't remember.
I
K
don't
State
know.
pretty much just used issue. Like
But
someone was like, "Oh, I have mine on issue." That everyone's like, "Okay, cool, I'll do that too."
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
that's like
think that's the norm. That's definitely the norm. But there's
mhm.
there's other new ones that are, showing up,
Yeah, no,
especially
for
Yeah.
after
sure.
you like completely went to shambles.
I
It's
also I
Yeah.
also like recommend there's the thing with Adobe where there's like a my portfolio or something.
yes.
I've slowly started
Mm-hmm.
to like put my like photography stuff in there, my architecture stuff in there, and my like, all the different things that I've done to go in there. It's kind of like a website for myself and for people who want to like see me as a designer or as like an artist. And so I'd suggest doing that to showcase who you are as well. I'm not sure if they will visit it, but it's there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, I want to transition into, or before we get into another topic, I wanted to reiterate on a couple other things about just, setting everything up. So once you got your portfolio, your resume, you've applied to your programs, you've been accepted, and now you're officially applying. Some firm hits you back. Congratulations. And now you're like
Mhm.
setting up those interviews and everything. Let's assume that it went well,
Oh,
right?
oh,
What,
I'm stressed
I was
already.
going to say, what's the situation for like during those times? Like, how do you negotiate like your salary and everything, especially if it's like an internship? Are those things kind of already pre-built
Mm,
into your program? If there's an agreement with like AIA, it's like bare minimum is like $15 an hour or something. But
mhm,
were you guys able to go further on that? Were you able to negotiate with those firms to get that higher or lower? And also, this is to add on to that too. You're
Mhm.
also probably going to have to figure out like rent and everything at the same time too. If
mhm,
you're living somewhere for 8 months or something, you have to know like how much you're going to get paid in order to know how much you can pay for rent and have money
yeah,
to do everything else in the city. So
yeah.
just curious about what
Right.
your guys' process was with that.
So, as far as the income part of it, it was just every firm had their set, number.
Mm,
Mhm,
I think deep down everybody knows like the good number, that's the minimum,
yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
And so I got a few offers. The one I am currently in happened to be, the highest, but I also knew I wanted this firm from like after a few interviews and everything.
Mhm,
Yeah, you don't really, I don't know, I didn't negotiate. Some firms were like we can meet your number, or like if trying to like stay competitive, but the school
Hmm.
had nothing to do with that part of
Sure,
it.
yeah.
But yeah, so that was one question. What was the other one?
It was like looking for housing, and like in the case
Oh,
where you have to eventually
yeah.
pay rent, like how do you
Hmm.
know how much rent you
Yes.
can afford?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
I know I didn't have to do this process, but I'm guessing you had to set something up before you actually get there.
Yeah.
So
Right, right. So yeah, so I don't know. I think I had a good number, and then the process of looking for an apartment I did in 2 weeks or a week. So I don't recommend that. I have a little studio, so it was a good find, but
How
mm,
much was
yeah,
the studio, if you don't
so
mind me
it's like
asking?
the minimum is like 1 grand right now.
Oh
At least
wow.
pretty
in
standard.
my
Yeah,
area, like in
yeah,
Kansas City, if you're living alone, I live alone as well.
Right.
So that adds a big thing to it. But you really can't find anything cheaper than
Yeah.
that. Either Midtown. I'm looking to move after this
downtown
semester. I
still.
need to
Yeah,
find, yeah, I want to find an even cheaper place, honestly.
Hmm.
Um but also my dad does help me out while I'm in school.
Hmm.
So that is super helpful, and I know like not
hmm
everybody has that opportunity,
Hmm.
But yeah, I need to find a place that's much cheaper in rent and maybe bigger, hopefully. So we gotta move maybe like a little bit south, but literally everything is so expensive right now. It
yeah.
is absurd. But I will say I went from literally having no money in college. Like I was as broke can be, right? Like, and then so now I feel rich. I'm like, yay, I have an income. So actually I'm curious, did you guys have a job during school?
um.
Personally, I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents were also helping me out through
Yeah.
college in like certain ways,
Hmm.
Right.
and it was more of like the your job is school. So if you like
That's how
need
mine
help with
was. Yeah.
something, like let us know and we can figure out how to get around it. But I
Yeah.
also just I would do the whole like acorns type of thing where I would just like work during the summer, work a little bit during winter break, and
Yeah.
just
Hmm.
Yeah.
stockpile some money in my accounts so I could kind of just wait it out through the semester and then
Yeah.
restart the
That's good.
process.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
think it's so hard to I would be so hard to balance. I don't know if
No,
you did,
I
Albert.
definitely had that. During my first, second, and maybe third year, I was working in like the dining halls, like I say,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
just getting paid like it was just like I think minimum, but it's like getting paid a little bit better, but like it's still like just enough so that you can pay for your projects. But then
Yeah.
during my like was it part third year and then fourth year, I kind of like upgraded into working with the department where so the department had this like student portfolio that they had for the website, and so I had to essentially make them a website but also really make the students works on there look like really good portfolios for this for
Mhm.
the K State.
Like compiling
So
it all together. Yeah.
yeah. So I had to touch up a lot of the first year projects, the second year projects. And so like because of that, I kind of started honing my skills for Photoshop, Illustrator, and all these stuff because I had to fix what they didn't fix. And so that the school could look good. But
Yeah.
like all throughout my 5 years, yeah, I was definitely working all the time, and it was super stressful because like my parents were helping me out, but they were just helping me with the rent and everything
Mhm.
else, like food
Mhm.
and all like projects, everything else I had to support for myself. And so I had to work. Like I had no choice but to work because
Yeah.
how else am I gonna do something so expensive?
Right,
But
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
um
impressive. That's a hard thing to handle. I had a few studio like classmates that were, I mean, this, oh,
sorry, I
no,
choked on
No, die on
water.
us.
you're good. Um, I had this one guy that was working before studio, and then after, I mean, I was like, oh
Oh
my God.
man.
Yeah. So it's super impressive. But yes, so the financial part of it definitely comes into play. Um, but I think really, truly, my reality will be when I graduate, that'll
Mhm.
be
hmm
when I am.
That career money hits
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I was going to say before we move on real quick, I was curious about Albert. How was your situation for looking for that?
Right.
housing situation while you're doing all these interviews and applying
Yeah.
to other places at the same time and all that?
Yeah. So I interviewed with. Sorry, I'm trying to get this water out my lungs. So I applied in Seattle, which is probably like one of the most expensive cities in all of America. Like it's
Hmm.
like right behind like San Francisco and like New York or something like
New
that.
York, yeah.
And
That's crazy.
so just for reference, all the like a singular room that's like I would say 10 by 10 would be something around $1,000. Not even like a studio itself, just like a singular room that you like have with roommates would
Sharing
be
with
like a
four other
thousand.
random people,
Yeah,
yeah.
would be like between like 1,000 to 1,500. And so finding housing in Seattle that I could afford was super super stressful. And so Abby at the time, who's also she's one of our classmates that is part of the podcast. Abby was also going to Seattle, and so I was like, Abby, I am struggling. Do you have some tips and tricks? Because I think she already found something, and she was just like she was kind of like she was I was where she was at a month ago. So I was like a behind. And so I messaged her and talked to her and she was like, "Yeah, look at this Facebook sublease group or something." And so I actually found my place there. And so I found something that was like $900 for rent for a single room. Enough for me to live there and actually, not starve to death. So
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
that's where I found mine. But I know that there's other things, but the people wanted to talk to me in the Facebook sublease group, and I made some friends there. So it's not all too bad either. So and so yeah, the firm also I don't know if I can disclose how much they were paying me, but it was I think enough for me to pay for school at the same time and also go like pay for school but also not like die in Seattle. So it was good. And so I messaged they emailed me how much they could pay me. I said, I think I might need more than this. And so I messaged my professor. I emailed my professor. I was like, hey, this is what they're giving me. And then my professor a day later is like, yeah, that they don't that number looks like they will not give you another option. I was like, oh, I guess this will
Hmm.
have to work. And so that's what happened.
But you made it work.
Yeah, it worked. I think
Turns out
I,
designers are kind of creative in that way, you know?
dude, it's crazy.
But yeah, I guess so. By now, we've covered pretty much the process of like, what those general differences are between both of those programs. Hopefully, other listeners have some type of experience that's somewhere in between those or pretty similar to one of the other ones. And we've
Hmm.
kind of gone through a little bit of like some tips at making your portfolio and your presentation to firms a lot better. And just a little bit of that behind the scenes process of like looking for places while you're also interviewing and all that. Or I want to transition into asking more about the actual experiences being there. And, like what kind of tasks did you start off doing?
Hmm.
Do you have any general tips for students to like make the most out of their experiences? And then we can even get more into like, more of the fun things that you would do, like exploring your dream cities that you're in and like figure out ways to balance both of those things and all that. So,
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, let's see. So I think I've had a very unique experience. Like, I feel super grateful for the firm that I'm in. I started working and the project I am on was also really early in the process. So I've been able to literally see it happen.
Hmm.
Um, up until like right now, which I think is super nice. Like I didn't just jump into a project midway, and I don't know, I've been able to feel like I'm really integrated in the design process, which is super helpful. And yeah, like, programming, literal design, like everything I've been included in, which I think is so nice.
Hmm.
I mean, like I said, I have learned so much software. It
Hmm.
is absurd. Like Revit is my best friend.
yes.
I think it's such an important tool. So
Hmm.
those are the biggest things I've learned. I felt, and also our team is small, which
Mm-hmm.
is so nice. Like I was talking the other day with one of my coworkers, and it is crazy how involved I feel, and I think it is because it's a smaller team. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, like I'm just an intern, but I mean, I'm learning so much. I think an advice would be never not like never just sit there and not have anything to do.
Mm-hmm.
If something like if a project is slowing down, reach out and ask what else you can help. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
because you're gonna learn so much no matter what team you're on. So
Mm-hmm.
always be, asking to learn more and to get involved, and your coworkers will see that, your supervisors will see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing would be to, okay, so get to know your coworkers well. I don't know, I'm not shy at all. So I am like best friends with my coworkers that have,
Like I said, she's the life
two
of the office.
daughters. Yeah, they have like two daughters and whatever, and obviously we can't relate much. But still like, enjoy the time there, be super, I don't know, be outgoing, I think
Mm-hmm.
is important to, share your personality and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But always, always want to learn. Like as much as you think you know, you don't. So listen to everybody because everybody there knows so much more than you do. So be receptive to that. And I
Put
don't
the
know.
ego in check.
Yeah, you really have to, because it's like you walk in and you're like, I know Revit, blah blah blah, but you don't. It's like you're gonna learn so much. So just be open minded about everything, and yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I can say. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess mine would be like, okay, so just for reference, every client we had were like super, super rich people. And so eventually, um, what typical interns do at this firm was, you in the beginning, that you just do like a couple renders, do some photoshopping here and there, Illustrator, diagrams and stuff like that. Doesn't really involved being a designer yet. And so from my experience, I was there for 8 months, and so they cut up the. I think this is for all interns at the same time, but the first half of your internship, or like you're jumping from project to project to project to figure out what you like, what you don't like, who do you vibe with all the team members. And then the second half would then be really incorporating yourself within the team. So now, well, for my case, I was essentially a designer. I remember talking to my PM and people that were like arc, I don't know, like arc 5 or something, so someone with a lot of experience, and they were telling me the stuff that you're doing as an intern is not intern level. Like, what you're doing is like at least like arc 1 or arc 2. Like, you're a full
Wow.
designer now. And
Mhm.
so a tip I would say for that then be, it's all about upward management. Like, you have to take initiative for the things that needs to be done for the work that you're given. And so, what I mean by that is that in the beginning of your days, usually you get the red mark papers, like, this is what you need to do. But then for some reason, you're intern, so you don't have as much experience, and so you have to take the initiative and be like, oh, I see that I have a problem here that I don't know how to figure out, so I'll need to message the person beforehand, because these people are going to be busy. Not everyone's in the same time frame as you, and
Hmm.
so you need to
Mhm.
message beforehand, like, this is the issue that I'm going to have in the future, but I have all these other stuff that I'm gonna do. I'm just giving you like a heads up of, I might need to talk to you at some point because of this. And so giving them like an upper management, like I said, where you're managing yourself, but also looking, like, having the foresight to see what obstacles you're going to face, and then asking for help
Being on
from
top of
people.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that's one big thing that you need to like really understand, is that um not everyone's in the same time frame as you. So you have to be able to take initiative and do upward management. So
Mhm.
take care of the things that your PMs are going to tell you about before they even tell you about it. if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I
Uh,
was curious about hearing about a time that you guys face like, or tell me about a time where you face like a really big challenge in your internship experience and like how you went about to solve that.
mhm,
I guess a big challenge would be, but I guess it would be like deadlines that we have to meet, right?
mhm,
And things that you just have to take on.
mhm,
But the biggest thing I think is communication will get you so far. Like you just have to talk to everybody, talk to your supervisor. I would say that's really the biggest thing that helps everybody out is communication. Like set
mhm,
a time to be like, okay, when are we meeting? What needs to get done by then? Blah blah blah. So
mhm.
yeah, I'm trying to think of like a super crazy hardship. I don't know if I have had
I
one,
think
but I would just say deadlines are
I I don't think it's like a like for me it wasn't like a singular moment where I was like hard like it was hard.
Mm,
Mine was like a consistent like it was obstacle after obstacle. So again, for context, in my long-term team, we were I don't know how much I can say, but we were working on this big master plan, and so as an intern, typically you're just working on one project within the whole thing. But as me, because of the things that I was doing, the things that like the upward management, like I said, I ended up working on one, two, three houses, one beach club, one golf club, one like I was working on every single project of the whole thing. This is why they said that I was not doing a typical intern job because I was like our team was small and so I had to step up and
mm,
become like a designer for them. And again, because of the amount of projects that we were doing or the amount of projects that I was doing, the deadlines, like you said, were like the biggest problems because I would have a meeting for Tuesday and then Friday and then Wednesday. So like every other day there was a meeting for with the clients. So I'm like, how am I supposed to design when you're meeting with me every single
mhm,
freaking day? And so
Mhm.
it was really hard to balance like designing and also um, meeting the deadlines for the clients and stuff like that. And so what I did was, oh, dude, this is such a bad tip, but like it's such a bad tip, but because I was like, it was overwhelming the amount of like the stuff that we were doing, the amount of stuff that I was doing, and we had such a small team. I had to do it because like who else is gonna do it?
Mhm.
And so I would stay in. Oh, dude. Oh, ooh, I don't know. I would come in at like around
few
8
extra
a.m.
hours per night.
Yeah, yeah. I would come in at 8 a.m. sometimes like 6 a.m. I would meet with the like the person, but I'll come in 6 a.m. sometimes and I stay until like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 9 8 p.m., 9 p.m. type of stuff. And so I was working so much. It
Mhm.
was just like everything was there all at the same time, and it was super overwhelming and a lot of stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
And I would not wish that on anyone, but it
Mhm.
made me learn
Mm,
so much. Like I learned Revit because of it. I learned how to manage my time. I learned how to like manage other people's times, look into the future and stuff like that. But dude, I do not wish that on anyone because like you lose time for yourself and enjoy your city. But again, I'm a workaholic, and I
mm.
needed the money, so I just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good though because one, you prove yourself with that firm, and also I have this mindset where right now, like while we're young, no kids, no spouses, no anything, like
Mhm,
we should like I personally believe that we should be putting in that time. It's like put yourself out there as much as you can. Right now is your prime, and then after that you're going to have a ton of other responsibilities. So
mhm,
if work is your one thing right now, I think I don't know, that's super respectful or respectable, Albert. Like you're like someone had to do it, so you have to get it done, and I completely agree. And
Mm,
honestly, it's like we have the most free time out of all of our coworkers probably. Like
yeah.
mhm,
they
With
have kids,
families and all this other stuff
they have
going on.
so many more, responsibilities.
mhm,
So I think while we're young, that's a huge thing to be that person and just
Like
mhm.
being a team player.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hmm.
No, I was gonna add like the whole communication part is like really essential. Like even just admitting flat out that like, hey, like I didn't lie. Like I know how to use Revit and all this stuff, but like what you're asking me is not something I've ever done before in Revit. So like
Mhm.
I'm gonna need all the help I could possibly get to figure
Hmm.
this thing out. Like even
Mhm.
with like Jimena, like K State, we never touched SketchUp. We're all about Rhino. So the first like day
Oh,
of my like,
dude,
it
yeah.
wasn't an internship, but it was a job. Like walking in, this is my first day. I have to impress everybody here so I can keep my job. Like I get sat down and like, hey, we need this like competition level type of project stuff. Like SketchUp. I'm like, I know how to open SketchUp. He's like, okay, here, follow
Yeah.
me. Walk over to another desk. It's like this is this person. He's gonna tell you what you're about to do. He's like,
Mm.
yeah, you're gonna sweep this bowl, do like these three different types of layouts and like organize it this way. I'm like, I I don't even know how to start. Like even if this was Rhino, I don't even know how I'd even start
Hmm.
this part yet. So I was just frantically running around being like, hey, I don't know what to do with this stuff. Like, can I ask somebody for help with stuff? He's like, yeah, you can ask like some KU people. So I was bugging Jimena all the time across the desk who are just like, how do I like, do anything in this program? So
Yeah.
it's just like the more you're communicating and being authentic and genuine and just being truthful about what you know, what you don't
Mhm.
know, it's going to help them overall because if they're entrusting you and they don't know that you don't know how to do something,
Mhm.
it's only going to hurt everybody. So you might
Hmm.
as well just tell them up front and they can figure out how to help you do your
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Wait,
And
so
everybody is super, at least at our firm, you can ask anybody and then they'll walk you through and help you. But yeah, you did get a an interesting task for your first.
It
That was
was a trial by fire for sure.
it was yeah, you were yeah. Yeah, we don't even have to go there, but that was I mean the model was crazy. Just even
Yeah.
handling them, I don't know. Yeah, that
It
was a
was to the
whole
point where like even people who knew SketchUp really well was like, what is this file? So I'm
like it
like,
was
okay,
just
at least I'm not
you.
like
Yeah.
horrible. It's like
Yeah,
everyone else is agreeing with me. This is really bad.
yeah, yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah.
no, every time I was gonna say with the SketchUp thing, every time they asked me to do SketchUp, I was like, I don't know how to do SketchUp, but I know Rhino, and so I would just like do it in Rhino and then export it as
Hmm.
SketchUp. But that's what they wanted, and so I was just like, okay, whatever. So I never really got to dive in like you did, Ryan. So
Yeah.
respect to you. I
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would
like
never
I've
touch
gone from
SketchUp.
knowing like one solid program of Rhino and like tidbits of Revit, slightly less than that of even SketchUp, to now
Mhm.
knowing how to use like all three of those like Horseman project or
Yeah,
Mhm.
softwares with
yeah,
pretty good efficiency or proficiency now. So
yeah.
Mhm.
asking for help goes a long way, is what I'm trying
Yeah,
to get at.
Respect,
agreed.
respect.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess to transition like our final topic, it was just going to talk about like adjusting to the new routine and lifestyle because you're used to this studio setup, right? Like you can kind of walk in whenever. I'm assuming at KU, like you're not, or
Yeah.
actually, okay, you have 24/7 access.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, well, let's just say you're used to the studio lifestyle and now you're going into a firm and they're working like they're the 9 to 5 type of situation, and you got to learn how to adjust to that and like figure out how your morning commutes can get to there and all this other stuff. So I was
Mhm.
curious about how you guys have adjusted to those new routines and lifestyles.
Yeah. So positives is I don't have a problem sleeping at night. Like genuinely, I don't dream about my studio projects. I go to bed at a normal time. Like I think you get a sense of your life back while you're working.
Hmm.
Um, but then I do think like having a 9 to 5 on a computer, that's not normal. Like it's
Mhm.
your body is not designed to sit and stare at a screen for 8 hours or more.
Mhm.
So that was the biggest adjustment. Like the first few months, I was like, I can't believe this is like the rest of my life.
Hmm.
It was like so it'll take a minute to transition. I think everybody goes through that where it's like,
Mhm.
wow, like we do everything for this.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then it's like when you start collaborating with your coworkers and everything, it kind of it feels like a studio, right?
Mhm.
It's
Hmm.
like a super professional studio environment. But yeah, I think adjusting to that is hard. And like I was used to living with like three or more roommates at a time. Like my senior year, I lived with seven other girls. It was like to living alone in like a little shoebox.
Hmm.
That transition was crazy. But yeah, so I think finding once you take it all in, you're like, okay, but
Hmm.
you have to stay positive. I think it's super important to make the best out of the workday because yeah, like it kind of sucks sometimes, you don't want to be at a computer for 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's just normal. And you like look outside and it's super sunny, blah blah blah. But like take a minute to like go get, coffee with a coworker or
Hmm.
something. Like Allie and I always do our walks,
Hmm.
something like that to kind of ease the day and yeah, get up, I don't know, walk around. I don't know
I do that all the
how to
time. I
best.
like my
Yeah,
hourly lap around the office kind of situation.
for sure. Same, you kind of need to. But yeah, so that transition I think really hit hard.
How's
But
the
uh-huh.
how's your weekends look? Because like I remember in school, we had no weekends. We are just working students. How's
Yeah.
your
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you also get the weekends back. It is so nice. Like today technically I will have to work a little bit, but that's only because of a deadline, right? But
Mhm.
it's like no like the Sunday scaries of waking up and being like I have to be in studio all day today. I am so terrified that that's going to happen in my next semester. My final studio. But you get a weekend back. It's so
Mhm.
nice. It's
Mhm.
genuinely like the weekends are actually a
Mhm.
weekend.
Yeah. What do you
That's a
do
good
with your weekends?
Okay, so like I mentioned, so I have a few friends that are still in KC from school, but thankfully, so my boyfriend is from KC, and
Mhm.
so his friend group has kind of adopted me, which is so nice because I don't have, like a big core friend group here anymore. So usually like we'll go out with them, watch the KU game,
Mhm.
rock chalk.
Oh no.
Um but yeah, so that but other than that, like I'll hang out with him or our friends and everything, but I haven't explored yet. Like I
Mhm.
haven't other than shopping. I haven't really
That's a
done
different exploration.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I do that on a weekend basis, but I haven't like gotten out to see the city, which I should. But
Mhm.
I do love a lazy day. Like I
Dude.
could
You
sit in this
deserve it. From
apartment
studio? Yeah, I'm
every
gonna sleep in.
weekend. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I agree. But yeah, so that's kind of my experience.
Mhm. Dude, I would actually love to stay in if I'm always completely like stressed from everything else. I would love to just stay in and just like watch a movie or something like that. But as you know, if you're going to school, you don't really have that like luxury yet. But once you get to the internship, you'll have it. You'll have it. Like once you get to the firm life, you'll have it.
Yeah.
But I think my experience was because I wanted to go to a different city, like a completely different city. A big part of what I wanted to do was exploring the city and the different architectural feats that was happening there. So I went to a bunch of like Stephen Hall buildings. Even went to we went to drive to see the location where they filmed Twilight, like Forks. And
Oh, yeah, I
so
forgot. That was
that was
over in
fun.
Seattle.
It was just a lot of fun and just exploring something that you can't really see in Manhattan, Kansas. Like there were tall buildings, being able to see the skyline, do some rafting, which you don't necessarily see in Kansas. We kind of like when Ryan and them came over, like we kind of like scrunched up all the things that you could do in Seattle that was so fun into just that was it 4 day break that they had with us,
Yeah, something like that.
and it was just no, I wouldn't. Dude, it was just so fun. I wish I could go back,
Mm.
but
I like, you're just becoming like a little bit of a tourist and just finding like all the things you can do and just
yeah.
figure it out whenever you got the chance. And
Hmm.
again, a big realization factor is like after you leave studio, you actually have life balance. Like who
Mm.
who would have thought?
Yeah, it's very similar though in with studio versus the firm because I think it's similar in the way that you're talking to friends and also working with them, I guess, in a way where because I'm working with and around them, they just become friends. And so we would hang out outside of work, but also in work. Um, I remember we like Ryan and I and our like group of friends would have lunch together during school, But when I went to Seattle, I also had my group of friends that we would just have lunch. We got in trouble so many times
Mm.
because we were just so loud. Um, we were, yeah. But anyway, no, it's very similar because you're there to have fun, be friends, and just work together at the same time. So wouldn't trade it for the world.
I also think that the motivation is way different at work only because it's like this thing is actually getting built. Like, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's
Mhm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to these meetings and everything. So I think it's obviously better. I think it's better,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, the motivation is insane. One, you're getting paid, and two, it's
Mm-hmm.
like this
That
thing
helps a lot.
actually gonna happen. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
It's a different mentality of like, do I really need to go back in the studio after eating dinner to figure out what my staircase is going to be? You're never going to see it. I'm never going to model it.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
like in the
Yeah.
real world, it's like, no, someone's paying for that staircase. So we should,
Yeah.
we got to
Yeah,
get that
and you
done.
actually have to, like, figure things out. You can't really BS your way around it,
Hmm.
so, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the challenge that's kinda cool too.
Yeah. So final
I
takeaways.
Yeah, my final takeaways from this experience is that, one is I'm very, very happy that I chose the firm I am in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I feel super grateful for that, and I think ending up in the sports and entertainment program, pretty much, I think I want to be a sports architect for the rest of my life is what I think. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I didn't realize how much of an impact that one internship will have. So that's a huge takeaway is like this thing will set you up. Like I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that I have to be in it forever, but I see myself in this field for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, choose wisely, would be my takeaway for that. But yeah, I just can't stress enough the learning aspect of it is just
Mm-hmm.
be open-minded, network, don't be shy, be yourself. But yeah, I think just communicate and keep learning, and I think that's kind of my big takeaways.
I guess my big takeaway would be when you're doing an internship, it's not all work. You kind of just need to just sit back and relax and enjoy the city. So like we said earlier, you'll have like your weekends to yourself now. So and you don't live forever, so might as well, just do it for the plot line. Do something that like you'd never do anyway, and so just do it, and you'll figure out that you'll do some character development that's along the way,
Mhm.
and you'll be fine. Work is not the end all be all, and definitely while you're in work, learn everything that you can.
Yeah. I would say my biggest takeaway, like not necessarily internship specific, but fitting with the theme yet. I think a lot of people can get pretty soured at their view of architecture, especially going from like the nonstop grind of studio. And then you're like, what's it going to be like when I actually like had to do this when I graduate? But then I think there's a lot of like we talked about in this episode, but there's a lot of benefits once you actually make it out of studio. And like now you have your semi-rigid like 9 to 5. Once it's 5 o'clock, you can basically clock out. You can do whatever you want to do now. You don't have to feel guilty about not going back to studio after
Mm-hmm.
dinner. You can just like do whatever you want to do. And I think ultimately it's just making the best out of these moments and everything, like finding the friends in your workplace and just like
Mm-hmm.
really trying to foster as many relationships as possible. Because ultimately, I mean, like architecture is about people at the end of the day. Like, yeah, we do
Mm-hmm.
buildings for others, but it's all about fostering relationships, having a great time together. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So thank you guys for watching this episode of the Curtain Podcast. And thank you, Jimena, for being the best guest in the world.
Thank you guys for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate the more perspective on it from the KU point of view. So hopefully our
So,
audience got a lot of great from that and
yeah,
has
for
a good
sure, for
perspective on
sure.
internships now.
Well, before you guys leave, real quick, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
And also, if you're curious about what the study abroad experiences is like, we just released an episode on that too. So make sure you check that out. But otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
And don't forget to
And don't forget to
save.
save.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Curtain Podcast. And thank you, Jimena, for being the best guest in the
Thank
world.
you guys for having me.
We really appreciate the extra insight on the KU perspective on this architecture internship thing. So really glad that you're able to make it.
And before you guys leave, real quick, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
And also, if you're curious about what the study abroad experience is like, check out our other episode that we just released. But otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
And don't forget to save. Bye, guys.